Today, we've come back again to reflect on some of the situations that we have found ourselves. I am, again, Chaplain Colonel Ike Eweama, the Command Chaplain for the 63rd Readiness Division. And today we are going to reflect on this question that is always in everybody's mouth and heart, especially when we go through situations and circumstances that we do not like. God, why me? Life is hard, you know. Life is short. We know that too. Everyone, I guess, understands that. I don't know about you, but many of us do experience life's hardness in the form of unfair treatment that we get both in our personal and professional lives. We clamor for justice and equity in the society. In my profession as a chaplain and counselor, I have encountered others who feel the hardness of life through bouts of loneliness. I have also had my own share of aloneness, which is a little bit different from loneliness. This is not because I do not have people around me, but it comes personally for me from a deep nostalgia for yesteryears, to go back to how things were when I was growing up. A deep longing to reconnect with my past. A deep longing that the acquisition of academic laurels, good job, and all the goodies that my American dream has afforded me cannot in any way pacify. And I know, humanly speaking, that many of us go through that. But as our faces are different, so our ways of looking at life. This nostalgia, for me, is always ignited, especially when I meet people who try to patronize me by saying, "Aren't you glad you're an American?" One person once told me he was glad I escaped poverty and disease in my country of origin. I smiled and thought to myself, oh, how I wish you know that in the midst of your imagined poverty and disease, I had a deep joy that came with being a native-born Igbo man from the beautiful land of Biafra, a son of the soil. And if you know that, what that means a lot to every native-born Igbo person. One such experience long time ago, but I still remember it so vividly in my mind. The day in question was very chilly and cold, and the night was far gone. We came back from watching a bonfire the day before the homecoming ceremony at the academy where I was teaching then. I was a single person, and as I opened my friend's car, I noticed the parking lot was empty, because he dropped me off at the church premises. I took out my keys from my back pocket and made for the front door. My companion bid me good night, yet waited and watched me open the door. The scene amused me. It did. Ordinarily, I come from a very large family where after a day's job, you must always walk into so many people. But on this day, here I was walking into an empty house. A cold shiver ran through me. I felt very lonely, very, very lonely. I felt a shade of darkness roll over my head, and a stream of pain flowed down my spine. My hands were on the light switch, but the room was dark. A 2-minute silence seemed like eternity. My mind flashed back to the question of the day. Father, do you miss home? Do you miss your people? Do you miss your family? These questions, I know, coming from a very genuinely concerned person, evoked an indescribable feeling of being alone in a foreign land. But again, being loved, because my memories went back to my childhood. So the barrage of questions and thoughts were still on my mind when I switched the light and I whispered to myself and uttered despondence. Yes, I miss my family, I miss everything dear to me. I could feel the warmness of my siblings' voice ring in my ears. I walked to my bedstand, turned on my light switch, which momentarily seemed to dispel the darkness both in the room and in my heart. And many times in life, whether in the office or just walking by the trail, some of us feel that way. But my memory at that moment instantly took me on a journey back to the good old days of protected childhood. I remember the days when I could go on playing soccer endlessly. Yes, I remembered the breezy and bright moonlight nights. I remembered sitting under the avocado pear tree at the center of my father's compound, watching the beauty of the stars. I remembered perching on the big mound at our backyard in a deep solitude, only interrupted by the sweet songs of natural ants or birds. I remembered hearing the faraway cries of innocent children untouched by the cares and vicissitudes of life, the innocence. I remembered how it felt sitting by my father's side while he contemplated the beauty of the stars, as I thought in those days. As I lay on my bed that night with those wandering thoughts, I could feel once more those words of affirmation and commitment that my father often spoke to me. I could hear his voice say to me, "My son, you may not be perfect, but you are about the best thing that God gave me and your mother. But know that even if our love for you is not enough, even if the world treats you like a trash, you must always know that God loves you no matter how broken you may feel." And that's why I'm telling you today, dear friends, I'm repeating those words to you. No matter how broken you may feel, no matter how bad life and hard life may seem, just remember that God still loves you. In so many ways in my daily life, it reminds me of my brokenness and my inadequacies. I walk into the office, I know that I'm not perfect. I'm reminded of my own need to be loved and cherished as I walk into my family too. It is not easy to admit that we are flawed in our humanity. No one has got it all together. We are often embarrassed by our inadequacies. It is these inadequacies that make us feel sometimes unloved and unlovable in the eyes of people. These flaws could be physical, mental, or spiritual wounds that we carry about every day. But you and I know life is hard, and none of us escapes some form of brokenness. It's not possible. I guess there have been moments when you would like to cry out like my friend did when she could not take it anymore. God, why is life so hard? Why is it that nothing in life is really like it seems? She said, God, please take away this life of loneliness and pain before I take it myself. And I told her, no. You cannot take your life yourself because you did not give it to yourself. This was because for a long time, like you and I, she was in denial of all the spiritual and emotional hurts that she carried with her. The verbal and emotional abuse by a husband who was only interested in the money she made as a nurse or she would make. The sense of abandonment by the same man who, when she needed him most, was not there. The honest, unspeakable pain she felt by the betrayal of her close friend, who she trusted, all culminated in that cry of anguish. You know people in that situation, don't you? I have been there, and probably you too have been there. Many of us consistently blame ourselves for everything that happened to us. And this kind of attitude can never bring healing. If you need healing, if you need to get away from that situation, when you find yourself in circumstances that are beyond your control, in order to pull through such emotional quagmire faster, you would have to reach out to someone, a friend, a colleague, someone that you can trust to step in and help you lift the burden. Many times we do not realize how much we are loved until we open up to others. Love, I feel, is the only power that can deflect the effects of such anguish, the effect of such cry, God, why me? Yes, life is hard, but you must learn not to carry your load of pain all alone. Because God, in His infinite wisdom, places people along your path to help you, but you have to open your eyes to see and to receive that help. When God has extended this healing grace in the form of someone to you, sometimes that person may not be what you expect them to be. But you must trust that God has anointed that person to bring healing to you in the midst of all your tribulations and trials, in the midst of all your brokenness. That's how God blessed the daughter-in-law of Naomi, Ruth, in order to help her bear her burden. You must trust that God sent that someone to help bind your broken heart, to proclaim liberty to your physical and spiritual captivity, to grant freedom to your emotional prison, and to give comfort to you in those moments when you cannot stop crying and asking, God, why me? It does not matter what you are going through right now. If you are willing to share your hurt, especially with someone who has also known pain, someone who has also known what it means to be hurt, someone who also has endured misfortune, you will find out that you are not alone. If you are a Christian, that someone is Jesus, because He also wept. So in your moments of crying out in anguish to God, God, why me? Remember, Jesus also was there when He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? But remember, you are not alone. You just need to reach out to someone.